Right.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Push to Talk. We've got some special guests today. We've got Carneros here on
Good morning,
comms.
everyone.
Special is the right word.
We got Para with us, and as we think we derived earlier in the conversation before we went live, Horrendous, a first time on an Eve cast and on
That's
camera.
right. On camera, yes.
So welcome all, and welcome to everybody out there watching. Hope you enjoy the show as we go forward. We got lots to talk about, don't we, gentlemen? Yes?
Oh,
No?
It listed the fun things in Eve. And
Yeah, so I think we're done.
I'm at a loss.
Fun things.
I don't know.
Fun.
Was it in quotes?
No, it wasn't. I'm only allowed to type so many characters pre-show because Caleb gets upset with the clicks. So I just said fun.
Confused me.
My bad. I'll do better next
you
time.
need to put it in the air quotes.
Right. The scare quotes.
You know, didn't know if I had to escape those characters on a transmission. So,
Oh yeah.
Right.
So
You're gonna log into Eve and you're gonna have fun.
Red boot stamping says Horrendous, you look friendlier on camera.
Looks community saving.
Yes, definitely can.
Alrighty.
But no, I'm a friendly guy, really. Even in fleets, I just want everybody to shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
I think spending time with your friends, sitting quietly in total silence, is the most friendly you can be.
There is a certain amount.
Exactly.
Of,
Well, that is true. You know, it's just unfortunately that sometimes people open their mouths, and you soon realise that they are not friendly in any way, shape, or form. So
exactly.
You know,
and just think about it. People all over the world spend years looking for that one person that they can spend all night not talking to.
There you go.
Right.
Depends on the words, I would guess.
There was subtext there. I could hear some
That was
subtext.
deep.
What I was just saying that people, when you actually do get together with somebody long term, given the whole a third of your life is generally dedicated to your job, most of the time you spend together is asleep.
Mm-hmm.
There you go.
So you're looking for.
So if you're
We've got
if you're reading anything else into that, Caleb, that's
No, it's just I'm used to different
all on
topics
you.
on this show. Sorry.
Right.
I
We're
think last time we were
rebranding.
talking about goon social bathing.
This is now a relationship self-help talk show.
Well, it was advertised as being the fun things in Eve, and
Right.
I really enjoy telling people to shut the fuck up.
Mhm.
No, so Caleb, what's our first topic today?
Well, I thought we should touch upon the news, but looking at Reddit and what is on most people's mind at the moment, it's pretty much the RNG stuff, so at least we're going to get to that eventually. But I heard something about DDoSing and something about Kenshin, and I don't know if anyone wants to actually comment on that.
I'm sure they're completely unrelated.
Yeah.
Say that again
I'm
with the
just
conviction,
asking
please.
questions. Which is,
But,
we've
yeah,
got
right.
Kenshin talking about their Microsoft Arsenal, and then we've got repeated DDoS attacks.
You know,
I don't know.
I admit,
I don't know.
I admit that one
Russian.
has me a little bit curious because, I mean, I've seen Microsoft Outlook, I've seen Microsoft Word, I've never seen Microsoft Arsenal.
Right.
Oh, that's one
Is
of
that
the
like
new,
a big database where you can categorize your guns?
That's a new cloud offering.
Oh, okay.
for defense
It
contracts.
comes with
Okay,
with
that
Windows
makes sense.
Pro rather than like Windows Home or Windows
Yeah, if you've
So-
got 10 Creative Edition, I think Arsenal is in there.
Oh,
So like a low orbit iron cannon.
I
Yeah.
thought
Yeah,
maybe
it's,
that was Microsoft sponsored soccer team or something. I don't know.
Right.
that would have been a good way to go too. Yeah.
We went a different way, but that was also
Football for our friends across the pond and everywhere else outside the U.S.
Yeah.
Everywhere. Our friends
Hey,
elsewhere in the world.
Canada has our football too.
I thought they had Canadian football, and I'm not really sure.
Well,
what
they
that
do,
is.
but it's
Is
close
Canadian
enough.
football like Canadian bacon? Because if that's the case, then it's not football in any way, shape, or form.
There you go.
The ball's just flatter.
What,
It's a-
Canadian
it's a
bacon?
circle
Like
dip.
Canadian
It's
bacon
a
is
frisbee
back
thing.
bacon.
That's literally the only thing that I've heard from about Canada that's really terrible is the fact that your bacon sucks.
Is it
I mean, it's just ham.
U.S. bacon sucks?
U.S. bacon's wonderful.
Because Canadian bacon is just back bacon. It's sold in the U.S. in this horrible adulterated form where they trim off all the fat and then just give you a tube of it, and it's bad. Like, it's supposed to basically be square blocks that actually fry up really well.
Clearly, we have not experienced true
See-
Canadian bacon because, like, all I know is like Egg McMuffin's got a little
Right,
circle.
right, exactly. That's the Canadian bacon we get, and it would be like if all they gave us was the actual meat part of bacon.
Mm.
For those of you just tuning in, Eve is being DDoSed, so we're a cooking show now.
Yeah,
It's a cooking show.
that's really
They have unleashed
to
the
be fair,
Microsoft arsenal.
Do you want me to let you in on the one fact that I know about bacon that's really quite abstract?
Go for it.
You can use bacon to fuel a thermic lance that can cut through a baking sheet.
That's very meta.
That can make a mess in the kitchen.
Cool. I will make a mess in the kitchen. It will, but it is fucking awesome though.
Well, it's only going to make a mess in the kitchen if you do it in the kitchen.
You could do that anywhere, presumably.
Right,
yeah.
exactly.
Yeah,
You can
yeah.
make a mess in the backyard.
Anywhere that you have, oxyacetylene
hold it.
and a flame.
Completely Eve related, but backyard related. Have you ever watched that guy that does YouTube videos that blows shit up in his backyard by doing like different things like pouring molten aluminum in a fish tank and shit like that? Have you ever seen that?
I've seen
No, but it sounds
videos-
really similar to this thing that used to happen on TV called Mythbusters, where basically they'd find any justification they could to make explosions.
Absolutely. I love when they blew
Adam,
up like the cement
being-
mixer to try and clean up the cement inside.
To be fair, Adam Savage actually does have his own YouTube channel that he does really fucking awesome builds and stuff like that on. You should check it out.
Oh yeah, I mean they're both very talented professionals in their field, but let's face it, after about season 2, the show became entirely about how do we blow stuff up.
Yeah, and I think
I love. I
I'm
really
not
love the-
complaining about that either.
I love the bit where they busted the myth about being underwater and not being shot. And they found out that the larger caliber pistol rounds actually penetrated shallower than the pistol rounds, for example.
Yeah.
It was crazy. So
They
really
just
cool.
missed the chance of actually getting carried into that pool.
Alrighty, let's get a topic and let's get rolling. Carnero says this is fun already, so
I'm having.
let's not delve into convection versus whatever.
Oh, we got
Oh.
100 bits from Laurel.
Yeah, Laurelverse, thank you for the 100 bits, and also thank you for the follow earlier. We do appreciate that. So thank you much. All right, so let's talk about this RNG stuff, and I have not read on it, so I don't know anything about it because it's one of those things in EVE that I'll never fucking play. So,
Oh, we have to channel those bits to our renders apparently.
What?
Okay.
No.
bits
I want
go
for
into
nothing.
bits.
I want
bit-
for nothing. This is your show. Stage of the show.
Well,
I was
bits
offered
bits
once
stay with
I was
INN, so it's
Used
good.
about why somebody was offering me bitcoins, and like it got really bad. I was like, I don't want bitcoins, please. I really, and I didn't realize that was like a Twitch thing, I guess. I'm just a little bit
you were
too old. I
denying
think the
it.
cutoff for
What the
getting
fuck is wrong
Twitch
with you?
is like 29. Like 29 is you get Twitch, and then above
Wow.
that,
Then
it's
some
like,
of us are
it-
really screwed.
Yeah, I'm in trouble.
Yeah, like I've got no idea.
No, I'm 34, so and I get Twitch.
You get Twitch. Okay, that's.
Yeah.
I'm just an idiot then, which is, you know.
I don't get a lot of things. I don't get Reddit, but I do get Twitch. It's
Well,
like
But then again, I don't go outside and like cut logs and stuff.
you
every so
you
often,
shouldn't
so,
you
know,
shouldn't
there's-
get Reddit.
There's that.
It's a
There's
bad
kind
thing
of
to
like,
get.
Hold it,
everyone
hold
has
it.
their own lifestyle, you know.
Hold it. You
Right.
don't go outside and cut logs. Like, you don't have like a chainsaw. You have not lived until you own your own chainsaw and you can go cut shit down in your backyard. That's a lot of fun.
I want to
McLeod. You
cut
gotta
a tree
get there.
down by shooting it down. That's
So
what
there's somebody asking, what is a random number generator? What is an RNG?
Well, it's
That's
a
the
random
answer.
number generator.
I answered you. It's a random number generator.
like an 8-ball.
What it is a method for a game to give completely unfair advantages to certain people at random.
This is a random number generator.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, there are a lot of those in
that is
Vegas,
the-
horrendous.
But that is actually better than a computer RNG.
Right, because
That is
it's a
truly
truly random, as opposed to just let me look at some point on the hard drive and pick the next bit.
Maybe we should introduce this with the fact that we send Paramedic to actually read up on all the Triglavian stuff at FanFest and try to actually catch up. And he wrote an article that's actually on INN that people can go and read. And then this just led to the whole explosion. And right now, I think Reddit's front page is actually filled with only comments about the RNG stuff. So this is a very hot topic.
It's hard because people are like concerned about the fact that RNG is a like it feels like it might be the precursor to loot crates, right?
Yeah, and the whole gambling thing and putting this into game design, sure, it's been very effective in other games to bring some, I don't know, some brain chemistry motivation and incentive. But in something like EVE, I think everyone is just a little bit scared that it might actually break the whole core of the game.
Well, let's keep in mind a few things. Okay. First, RNG has always been in EVE. Random loot has always been in EVE. Every PvE mission, the rats have a loot table.
Every
Yeah,
time
I think we discussed this at some point already. The fact
Right.
that the loot crate is pretty much that you're putting the random number generator, the whole loot drop thing, you're putting that in a box that's closed that you can exchange with someone else, or you can buy it directly from a store. Right?
Yeah,
If I can just buy a roll and I don't need to go and kill the dragon, why would I want to go kill the dragon?
Well, sure, but then again, that's also not new for EVE. I could
the
either
other
go
thing
and
is-
I could either go and find me an officer rat, or I could buy the module on the market.
Yeah, the content of the drop, right? But buying the actual gambling aspect of the loot drop in a crate by itself that you can then exchange with other people, that's pretty much totally undermining to the whole RPG mechanics, right?
If you want to gamble on buying something, just accept any contract from Gita Local. I mean,
Yeah.
you can gamble on contents of things you buy.
Yeah, just go and get those 3-card Monty things and just
Right. Any contract on Gita Local.
If you want to gamble, just go to Ransom and just walk gate to gate. Like,
Right.
you know?
Yeah, if you want risky market deals, just blindly message Scooter McCabe and say, "Hey, I want to buy shit."
Right.
Scooter
But
McCabe is
find
a
something
I do
for
want
you
to
to
qualify
buy.
something though. I do want to qualify something though, that when it comes to loot crates in other games, like a lot of the time, the incentive for people to do it is because they have it and they see the potential there, and the gambling, the kind of aspect that kind of people see it and go, "Oh, I kind of want to see what's in there." There's the kind of the fact that you can go out and purchase it with in-game money and go and get something and open it or buy it off another player is very different to a lot of other and to pretty much all other loot crates, in the sense that pretty much most or all other loot crate kind of systems, the key to opening that loot box or that RNG element is behind a paywall that the company owns and controls, whereas it's not for this.
So I talked with a lot of different people about this at FanFest, because I'm an immigrant from Elite Dangerous. And Elite Dangerous, another space game, flight simulator for those not familiar with it, they introduced an element, I want to say in 2015, late 2015, maybe early 2016, called engineers, right? And the engineers were, you can grind for hours to get enough materials. You take the materials and an object, an item, a module for your ship, a gun, your thrusters, your jump drive, whatever. You take those to a specific starbase and you start rolling dice, right? You throw materials in. The cost is you're paying materials that take hours and hours and hours to grind. You're getting out a potentially better, potentially very much better item in return. It's an unbounded, there are boundary ranges, but it can fall at a continuous range anywhere in there. The problem that this basically created in Elite was that people who got extremely fortunate on their rolls were objectively better forever with that module. Now, one thing that is very, very important in a difference between EVE and Elite is that in Elite, when your ship blows up, you get it back. You pay 5% of its value, you have it back. You have all the modules on it back, so you can't destroy. It's not impermanent in the way it is in EVE. And the other important difference is that you can trade things in EVE. So in Elite, you can't trade them. If you get the really good one, you have the really good one. You can't give it to anybody. You own it forever. You're the best, and everybody else can just get fucked. In EVE, you could, if somebody with a high enough price, you can sell that to them, and they'll take it. Then they'll have the best thing until they blow it up, until they lose it, like the whatever Rex Zerai, who keeps on blowing up 2 billion ISK crew ors on roams in Delve for some reason.
I think that's the important part, right? You have these two aspects of EVE that is unique and actually makes EVE work. It's the cycle of life thing, the whole industrial to creation and destruction, and then the market aspect. And those things do not exist in any of the games that usually have these RNG aspects in them, right? Just compared to something as pen and paper, in most pen and paper scenarios, you don't actually have a cycle of life thing, right? It is pretty much just go out and get loot, and that's where you get the things. Most RPG games do not have a good crafting system. And most games that have had a good crafting system seems to flatten it and make it, again, self-sustaining. Pretty much some of the things that we are seeing Eve moved towards, right? Everything is self-sustaining. You can do your own thing. You can build your own Titan. And this is not even a joke. This is a fact. People are multi-boxing raw pools and building Titans themselves. This is not what Eve was about, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right, but keep in mind that when you're looking at pen and paper, RPGs, there's a lot of different intersections there. It's a complicated Venn diagram. You're not one of the big aspects of a pen and paper RPG, especially one that includes a crafting system, is that it's simulationist. There's an element of it that is designed specifically to be a faithful reproduction of actual shit. If you're a smith in D&D or some other fantasy RPG that makes weapons, you make weapons. The reason they flatten it out is because while there is some element of variation in it, if you put all of your effort into, I am going to learn to make swords, and then every time you make a sword, it's a crapshoot on the dice as to, so did my guy who spent 20 years learning to make swords completely and totally fuck up making a basic sword? Nobody's going to do that. So that's something that pen and paper games take into account that a lot of computer games don't, because the immersion is assumed to be less right off the bat.
Yeah, and most other games, RPG games, they don't have this ecosystem that Eve has, right? It's split up servers, instanced stuff. It's very solo centric. They don't have an ecosystem where it's actually the players making everything. The joke that everything is made from titanium in Eve is a fact, right? It's true, but you don't have that in any other game. Every other RPG out there that's got some sort of crafting, resource gathering, it's pretty arbitrary, and it's not really integrated into the game design, whereas it's the core of Eve. So if you bring in something that's potentially the Monty Hall tragedy into Eve, you are risking actually destroying it.
Right, but is this? I mean, the things that you make, all right? Let's say you have. Let's take a completely ridiculous example that doesn't actually exist and isn't part of this, but it takes the concept to the extreme. Let's say you apply one of these like third or fourth iteration mutaplasmids to a Megathron hull, and you get a Megathron hull that has more armor, more shields, more everything. Okay? That doesn't make you any better at using it, and when the Megathron blows up, it's gone.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, of course. That's not the real risk. The point I'm trying to make is that in Eve we have the creation destruction ecosystem, right? But we also have things like random drops from loot and stuff like that. But it's on top of the player versus player economy, right? And if you add more of that, you're undermining the whole thing of interdependence and what makes it a proper sandbox. I think the interesting fact is that I mentioned this before, Nerdslayer has been doing this death of a game thing, and then he's commenting on many of the PvP-centric MMOs have all failed except for Eve. And I do think that the main reason that Eve is surviving is because of its unique selling points, like one single universe and an ecosystem.
Well, these mutaplasmids don't do anything on their own. They need the player-made items,
Right.
you know, in order to actually create something worthwhile or of, you know, higher value than what you put in. So, I mean, it's a multiplier for what's there,
But is it going to sink out enough?
It's going to undermine.
Is it going to be tied strong enough to the ecosystem? Is the bottleneck going to be on the mutaplasmids, or is it going to be on the resources? It's very important that this hits a point where it actually supports and builds up.
That's a matter of tweaking and iteration. They've got there's no way they're going to find the exact right balance point on availability versus performance on these things when they first drop it in. That's not going to happen. Nobody should expect that. At the same time, though, you know, that they are already tied into the economy, and they're really not. They're not going to change the driving engines of the game. Like, yes, a large plurality at the very least of the game is in HiSec, and you're going to see these things being used for missioners, no question there. You're going to see these things being used in small gang stuff, also no question there. People will be willing to churn through these things to make sure they get a good one.
I mean, I just
They're
wanna
not
quickly
going to
say
see
as
much
well,
use out in null.
I also want to kind of say, like, you know, I mean, people are going to run these in HiSec, yeah. But the other kind of thing is, like, depending on how expensive these are and how hard they are to actually grab, like, the ships that you're throwing into these into the Abyssal Dead Space, they're only cruisers.
Right.
And you know, you can see if there's if someone has gone into it in HiSec, because you know it creates a sig for you to scan down. I mean, yeah, you might scan down. You know, people might end up scanning down like wormholes and other kind of stuff like that. But you know, people will scan down those things and know that something's gone in there, and if it comes back out, it's probably going to come out with something that's quite expensive. You know, at least in the first week, 2 weeks of this, right?
Sure, but you know, in
Chances are,
HiSec, you're not going to be able to do much about it. What are you going
well,
to you gonna set up? You're going to set up
I-
a group of destroyers to gank it? Great, but
yeah.
so what? You're not. The odds are pretty good you're not going to get the expensive crap.
Well, I mean, neither
It's
is
like
the other
ganking
person.
right, but like it's ganking
you know.
it's basically ganking a freighter for a less expensive kill mail because these things aren't going to have.
It's not going
Well,
to require
they
as
might, because
much
they
as
won't,
a
they're going to
freighter.
put the random things on there. I think that the way these are going to be used mostly in HiSec are going to be the same way missioners use their purpled out rattlesnakes and stuff, right? It's
Yeah.
going to be all it's just going to be a blingy thing for people to apply to their own stuff, and they're going to be, and it allows a single player, a kind of solo-ish game loop. And I think more than any concerns about the RNG thing, because it's a crafting system for minor improvements on minor things, maybe even major improvements on some things. But at the end of the day, that's going to be kind of a limited. I don't think in 4 months everybody's going to be running around with mutaplasmidated out stuff. I just don't think that's a realistic thing.
No, I think the far more common item that you're going to see coming out of these things, as far as long-term use down the road, as far as how pervasive and how everybody seems to have one sometime, is going to be the ships.
I think the ships are going to see major use. Yeah, I don't think that's a question at all. These mutaplasmid things might be a novelty thing that you'd throw on a ship. If you're going roaming, you might throw it on. You're going to set up a gate camp, you might throw it on so you can meme on someone, you know. But
the two big uses I see for these ships in HiSec, and I am not an expert on HiSec, so I could be completely off on this. But the two big uses I see for these ships in HiSec is the cruisers are going to be used to do these sites, and the battleships are going to be used by HiSec Wardeck Corps to blow up people's structures.
Yeah, that tracks.
I think you'll see incursion fleets running them too.
Probably, yeah, because they can do a lot of.
Pretty sure they're also going to eventually be part of the subcap doctrines for killing faxes.
I don't think. Well, yeah, but that's not going to happen in HiSec. I mean, unless somebody goes after Max's Apostle, that's not going to happen in HiSec. But you're not going to see these things for incursions in HiSec. They don't have the range.
Yeah,
the weapons have no fall off, and I think it's
range.
like 21 kilometer range
On the battleship, it's tied to their size.
In that kind of sense. I mean, in that kind of sense, like, you know, you've only got 21 kilometer range, like, and even if you were going to try and kill faxes with it, like, you know, I already know a ship and I already know a doctrine that, like, you know, has much further optimal range for that, for killing faxes, and also has a ramp up DPS option as well. And I do believe that initiative does use it right now.
Is it?
Yes, but
Is it what I think it is?
But let's keep in mind, let's keep in mind
Great
the
fleet.
big advantage. The big advantage of these things is the entire rack of utility highs neuting out the facts
Mm-hmm.
from each ship in there.
That's actually a pretty
True,
good point.
true.
What I see
You don't
as
need a
much
fleet of Balgorns as backup.
Mm-hmm.
what I see as much
But
more
like,
concerning.
but really, in subcaps, do you really have the power, even with heavies, to be able to nude out a double cap injected?
We do it in Ishtars,
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
and they're only using 2 heavies. These
Yeah,
things
tell
can
me,
be
buddy.
using 4.
Oh yeah.
I think far more concerning, not in the immediate future. I don't think that these mutaplasmid upgrades are going to become, I don't think they're going to replace Freeport Fortizars or recruitment scamming as the cancer that's killing Eve, right? I think
I still
they're
maintain
not going
that's
to replace,
logistics.
interceptors as the cancer that's killing Eve, right? I think that
It's got a
what
lot of
it- what-
cancer.
I
what
thought it
was
was
noticed-
cloaking modules that's killing Eve.
right.
Has a
Whatever
lot of
cancer
If you read
is,
local, yeah.
whatever cancer of the day is, I don't think it's going to replace that. What I do think, what needs to be kept an eye on, what's not necessarily immediately of concern, but needs to be kind of watched carefully, is something that was mentioned kind of in passing, but I keyed to the word because I've seen it used before. Unpredictability is what that was the stated intention was to introduce unpredictability into the gameplay, which means effectively in the kind of the game design element, what that means is they want you to be rolling those dice. They want you, and somebody mentioned to me, okay, well, it's unpredictable if you're going to hit with a gun. It's unpredictable what's going to drop on loot, but that's a very different thing than if you're trying to turn out unpredictability for player reward for playing, right?
Yeah,
We
I mean,
rat
and besides
for income.
those RNGs, the loot drops, and
Right.
the weapon hits, those flatten out. Those flatten
Right.
out fast.
Right.
This
What
one.
was concerning to me particularly was that they said they went with the introduction of these systems, with the introduction of the whole mutaplasmid, what I assume is going to basically become a mutaplasmid meta economy. It's just going to be another thing like meta weapons or whatever, contract trade. It'll be its own little niche economy. You play it or you don't. But what they wanted was a major change that affected everything in the game, that would laterally expand, so everything saw some kind of fallout from it that was unpredictable. And that's a very dangerous road to walk. The thing about Eve, and they mentioned this many times during the opening ceremony, the keynote, all this, is that they're seeing it correctly as sort of a virtual world, a simulated world, right? Simulated worlds, virtual worlds work. It has an economy. It has player agents doing their own thing. It is effectively a world. Empires of Eve, for example, is all about these things we've done in a world. Without the sandbox, there's no sandcastles, right? The problem with unpredictability in your design is that real worlds work because they're predictable.
I think
right?
the problem is
These
that
things work because we know that we know the
new-
economy works because I know if I get a Rorqual out mining, I'm going to make this much money in this amount of time, which I can use to make these kinds of things. These are very consistent, reliable things that allow us to build, right? We can build these sandcastles because we know how the sand works. As soon as we're
That's the
introducing
point,
some
right?
unpredictability,
They're adding unpredictability. They're adding something that's invisible, that's not easy to implement into contracts, that's not easy to actually scan on ships. They've added something into the game that is so different than anything we've ever seen that it's actually potentially going to be disruptive, right? And there were so many good things they could have done with this. I wouldn't have minded that these were, say, temporary modifiers.
Well, Caleb, I'd say.
Now, can I finish? If they had added this to something like the industry, that you had a random number generated aspect on blueprints and industry, but putting it on the ships and then all these consequences on problems in the game is just horrible.
So the challenge that I see with this, right, and Para, you hit on it, and Caleb, you hit on it, right, is when you see somebody on a gate in a certain ship, you pretty much know their fit, you know what they're capable of, and you know if you think you can take them or not, right? What this introduces into that is maybe you can't, right?
Right.
Sure, you can't even scan them, right? They won't be scannable because you won't be able to see those modifiers because they're not
Right.
in that Dogma engine. So it's the same with contracts. We're gonna
No, Fozzie said you can see the stats on contracts, so he cleared that up earlier, but it's still a problem. I mean, I don't know. Do you want to play a game where, hey, you see a Megathron on the gate, and normally you can take him, but maybe you can't this time?
Well,
That's a question, right?
if you see a Megathron on a gate,
I'm just using it
And
as a
you-
stupid
right?
example.
But I'm just going with your example here. If you see a Megathron on the gate and your reaction is, "Hey, I can take him," not "I can probably take him." If you know 100% you can take him, you're gonna blow up
Hmm.
because you are way too cocky, and he probably has friends.
Well, I mean, you see the guys come through Delve all the time, right? And there are
And
ships.
they blow up, don't they?
Yeah, they do. They do. But I mean, that happens all throughout low sec and things like that. And I think I don't see it as a positive thing for the game. I can't see the good aspects that it generates in the game as a
I
player.
see
Right.
it. Okay, this actually touches on something that came up last night in Jabber in Elysium. Keiko sent out a poll basically and asked everybody to say whether or not they thought this was going to be good for the game. These things are not going to be good for the game. They are not going to be bad for the game. Let's just get that right out there right now. These things are going to just be another thing out there, and the game will adapt. The game will just keep soldiering on because that's what we do. The only thing that's kept EVE going is the fact that EVE players are first and foremost adaptable.
Idiots.
So we're going to
Adaptable.
Idiots works,
Right.
masochistic autists works.
Stubborn. Right.
Stubborn, yeah, all of that works, but we adjust. We may take forever to do it, and God knows we'll bitch along the way, but we'll adjust.
But
Now,
the question
where this is gonna potentially be good is this may get more people from the regular MMO community trying out HiSec.
Mhm.
Who knows?
What I would say, pros, right? Pros, monetization. This is a real concern. Let's be real. It is a for-profit corporation making the game that needs to make money. It's beholden to shareholders to whom it must deliver a profit or be shut down. That's reality. It might
Right.
not be the reality we want, but it is the reality. So something like this, where it's in and out instanced dungeon gameplay that you can drop in, drop out, get rewards that are worth playing, that are worth paying a Omega account for. That's good. That's a fine thing. It won't affect us at all in null play. It won't affect soft
Right.
play at all. It's going to affect those players who want to do that thing, and that's fine. Noble and fantastic goal. That's great. One question though, I mean, based on what you were saying, we will adapt, right? We will adapt to whatever change occurs. No doubt about that. Is that a good thing? Should they be able to rely on the fact that we will adapt to things, or does that teach them to do whatever the hell they want in terms of the game? I'm not saying quit the game, but I'm saying, does that because if you look at Elite, people are still playing Elite. They shouldn't be.
Sure.
You should not be logging into Elite because it's a bad game. And when you play Elite, you're encouraging Frontier to continue to do the same dumb shit.
Here's the thing. First off, EVE players are more than willing to make a fuss and let the company know when they're pissed off.
Right, that's true.
And honestly, right now, I think CCP is having something of an existential crisis right now.
Yeah.
There's and I'm going to say his name not because I'm blaming him for everything, but just because he's emblematic of it. There's the Sean Decker angle of CCP, where it's the traditional MMO mindset, it's the traditional gaming industry mindset, where everything is about the monetization and how do we make everything bring in money, as opposed to let's make a product that on the whole people want to pay for because they like the quality. There's that group, and then there's the old guard, as typified by Guard.
Right.
And CCP needs to be encouraged to remain CCP. They need to feel like the players have their backs. Because when CCP is CCP, they produce some amazingly horrible things, but they also correct those things and occasionally produce something that is terrible and insane and ridiculous, and nobody should ever be able to justify liking it. And yet 15 years later, not only are we still playing it, but they're doubling down and creating something even more ridiculous and obscene and absurd. And it was the best thing that came out of FanFest. And if you did not see CCP games, you have no idea what I'm talking about. But it was definitely the best thing that came out of FanFest. And it was absurd, and it was ridiculous, and it was the worst game show I have ever seen. And it was
that classic case of
amazing,
like horrendous. It was that kind of like classic case of it was so bad it was good.
And it was supposed to be that bad. It was like watching a Sam Raimi movie on drugs.
Like a massive parody of game shows.
And I don't mean the Spider-Man stuff. I mean like Evil Dead, like classic, real Sam Raimi shit.
That's awesome. Just a great visual.
Can I just comment on the thing you mentioned about Sean Decker, right? The whole monetization scheme that other game developers are doing, it's very solo-centric. There is no game out there that is like Eve. So trying to introduce the same model,
yes, exactly.
Eve
That's a mistake.
Right.
It's a mistake. I don't know how dangerous it is to the game, but it's a mistake. It will not work the way they think it will work.
What I would say, I've been thinking a lot about that, and what I think actually is the problem there, the quote, well, not the issue at hand. A traditional game that people play as a game can suffer some gamification, right? This gamification concept of let's make it a little bit random, let's make it quick reward loops that encourage you to keep throwing a dollar in there, right? Gamification is fine. The problem is that Eve isn't a traditional kind of game. It's this open world sandbox thing. We're paying to be able to play continually as we can, but it's more of this, we're building a sandcastle, right? You don't gamify when you go to build something in your backyard. You're building a barbecue pit in your backyard, right? And you dig it up and you start working on it. You don't want to be like, well, let's see if this brick lands. Whoa, oh, it missed. Shit. Okay, let's see if this mortar sticks. Roll the dice. Like, you don't want to do that.
I don't play Minecraft for the RNG.
right. The gamification thing, this idea that we're going to make everything in there a little bit of a adrenaline thrilling loop that makes me want to do it again because maybe I'll get a reward this time or maybe I'll get a punishment this time, but we're playing games isn't great because we're trying to build sandcastles and kick down other people's sandcastles. And having these kind of randomized game events in there subtracts from that. It does not add to it. It does add to an instanced play in a World of Warcraft. I'm going to go into the dungeon and maybe we'll do it, maybe we won't, because it's going to be 20 minutes or 14 hours or whatever. But it's going to be a fixed instance in time, and maybe we win, maybe we don't. Yeah. In Eve, it's 15 years now. And if you throw, let's see if it works, into 15 years of building, you're going to alienate your player base. You're going to, the people who are trying, the autists doing spreadsheets are going to be like, fuck this, we're out.
Yeah, so that's good stuff. Cornelius wanted to hop in here. Sorry, Cornelius. Go ahead.
And over those 15 years, costs of development have gone up. So just making a game that on general people want to pay for and they'll pay at a certain rate, will work for a while. But eventually, either you have to keep growing your niche, or you have to keep managing your costs down in some way, probably by delivering less, or you have to find additional ways to monetize, because you're going to have to keep putting food on the table for these people, or everyone's got to go home and find another job.
Right.
I'm particularly aware of that this week.
And that's kind of your topic, right, Connor? We've talked about this a lot. The whole thing of all the opportunities to monetize on something like Eve, which is more like a cult following than a gamer thing, right?
So you want to find opportunities that don't hurt the game, that allow people who do want to spend more and have nothing to spend it on to spend. That I could draw a parallel for a moment to PlanetSide 2, where the people who really like that game and play it have nothing to pay for now. If they've been playing for a while, they've got a few skins, they've got enough certs, they've got enough skills. There's nothing they can buy that they want, and even if they wanted to give us money, they couldn't.
And isn't this also where we should mention that we keep breaking records on the player events, right? And Groen just exploded his Kickstarter with almost 10 times his actual goal. It's not that there's a lack of money in the hands of the player base to actually spend on things. It's just, how do you monetize it without breaking the sandbox?
And it's not easy. That's a lot harder than it sounds.
Yeah, I didn't mean to kind of say like, oh, don't.
Yeah, no,
because like I said,
saying
the reality is you have to make money, right? That's the reality. It's just, I'm not saying there's a easy or I have a solution even. I don't know what the
I'm
solution
not
is.
saying
But
I do either. I've proposed a few things over the years, back when I was a CCP dev. Thankfully, we had the CSM that I could run things past, and they told me, no, don't do that one. Okay, fine. We'll just put it aside, save it. We remembered this for Eve history, but we won't do it.
Yeah,
there were a few things like that.
But we've talked about this before, right? CCP has been historically bad at the merchandise. They've been historically bad at virtual vanity stuff, and they've been historically bad at licensing, right? Why do we not have these things?
That right there, I mean, they could do so much with licensing. Like they could have the CCP store, which I'm given to understand is either gone or going away, but it could have been done so much better, and it could have been a venue for cash for them. But the big thing for monetization, though, is you have to understand your players. You have to remember who the players that you're dealing with are. You don't monetize a game like Eve or Minecraft the same way you monetize a game like
Call of Duty or something like
Call of Duty, yeah. And it's important when you're adding gameplay elements to remember who your player base is and what player base you're shooting for. Look at what happened with the rollout of ESO. When ESO rolled out, people were saying, "Oh my God, finally Skyrim multiplayer!" And then when it hit, everybody got mad because it was an MMO. Because you can't do Skyrim multiplayer, because one of the big things about Skyrim is you walk through stealing literally everything that isn't nailed down. And if you're the second dude through that town, you're screwed.
Unless you're friends with that first dude, you're also going to be constantly being tracked by a god-level enemy who you can't fucking kill because they can do nonsense to you.
But they were selling it as, the Elder Scrolls Online, as opposed to, listen, we have to make sure that you understand this will not be Skyrim Online.
Yeah, people never listened, though. That was the problem. There is their marketing campaign actually did a good job of explaining it, and people went, no, it's just going to be Skyrim multiplayer.
Right, but that's
no one listened.
That's what understanding your players means.
Yeah.
Because if you have this rabid player base that's going to be going, oh my God, you're making this only better, then
that's what you should have made.
You should have made that. Only
made that.
Exactly.
And if you can't make that, make sure you hammer it home. Like the first thing that happens when you log into ESO, and I've got an ESO account, so I know this doesn't happen. The first thing that should happen is there should be a pop-up along with the terms of service. Like after the terms of service, you get the EULA, and then after the EULA, you should get, I understand this is not a typical Elder Scrolls game. This is an MMO, and I have to share the world with other actual people. I cannot steal everything that is nailed down. I will not always be the center of the story.
That honestly, that would be the greatest disclosure in that
telling people
game
no,
you've ever
don't steal everything that's not nailed down isn't gonna stop.
It's never gonna happen.
There are
PvP.
legitimate ways you can make all sorts of things better just by adding a little disclaimer. For example, okay, and I'm not going to single any one of them out because God knows I don't want to get into politics or religion or anything like that. But imagine if every single holy text ever had a disclaimer at the front that said, these teachings are for legitimate purposes only. Do not start any wars. Do not fuck up anybody else's life because of them.
Like, you say that, and I'm like, that would have solved a lot of problems.
I know. Look, when I was in high school, a bunch of my friends and I set up a cult. Okay, we set up a cult, and we started writing our own holy book. And I swear to God, the first fucking book of the holy text was the book of the disclaimer. And in like 4-point font, this thing is 2/3 of a page long, and it goes up to like the party of the 17th part, and then loops it back around to say, so in closing, it's not our fault if you're assholes to one another. That's not what we meant with this.
So that's the fleet doctrine thing now, right? That's how we make our.
Oh, yes, that's very much the fleet doctrine.
It says, "Thou shalt not goonfuck."
So
Right.
Dirk in chat, he goes, let us paint graffiti on enemy structures. There would never be any problem with that. But I just want to elaborate on that a little bit, right?
No,
Can
Dirk,
you
Dirk, I
imagine-
want to make it clear here. Okay?
Yeah.
It was not role-playing a priest. It was not role-playing a cult. It was not cult
literally-
LARPing. It was literally a cult because we had our goals, and our goals were really, really simple. In fact, we had what I think was probably the best and most amazing cult pitch ever. And I will lay it on you guys, and you will be amazed that we did not get completely and totally successful with this. Our cult pitch was that we were going to tell you about the first Church of the Metric Week. That was our cult. And for the low price of only $5, we'd go away and you'd never have to hear from us again.
I would give you $5.
$5.
See?
I would pay into that. It's like our stupid fake gang in high school. It's like just literally just show up and just yell at people and leave. Like that's all it was.
So
See, I don't understand why we didn't get rich off of this. We just didn't try hard enough. We didn't get the
You
word out
weren't
there.
obnoxious enough. That's the problem. You got to
You know,
get up
all
there
right,
and just start making a high-pitched
I'm
squealing
just gonna
noise.
point this out right now. I think that's the first time anybody's ever told me you weren't obnoxious.
So
I will try harder to be more obnoxious in the future.
Wait. If I
Financial
want
success
to wait,
will
hold
follow.
on. I have a question. If I want to join said cult, do I have to provide some of the $5 that I earn from using this strategy against people to the cult, or do I get to keep all $5 for myself?
Are you asking for some sort of multi-level marketing aspect?
I want to know if this is a pyramid
haven't-
scheme. I'm
haven't
sounding it out.
We haven't considered licensing, but I will see if I can track the other guys down and we'll talk about it.
this is like
just do it as a
Shark Tank,
charity
right?
event.
So we're gonna license this, and I'm gonna get $2 from every sale until I get my investment back, right?
Oh no.
Just kidding.
We would never do $2 a sale. That's just
low.
asking for people to not give it their all. You want to incentivize it. We'd only ask for a quarter from each one.
There you go.
So that would
Whoop.
actually be pretty good.
Whoa! Forgot to turn my phone off. Sorry, guys.
But yeah.
The
All right.
Clear out your garage sites because you're going to have a lot of stock of
So-
that book.
I'm gonna have so much Nutra Boom.
Think about this, because I'll take us back to the spray painting your enemy structures, right? And McLeod, remember when we played H1Z1? What was our favorite thing to do? Take one of the His Regards machetes and a packet of salt and leave it in every base we raided, right?
That is
Imagine
correct.
if there was
Oh,
something you
great.
could buy in Eve that you would just drop off in your enemy system to taunt them a little bit.
I want to pay for all the ad space on the billboards in
God,
the
yes.
complex and just have it running the Imperium loop over and over
Yeah,
again. That would be
the
fucking
propaganda
amazing.
sites, the
Mhm.
propaganda
awesome.
structures. That will be a great opportunity to properly monetize.
But
Yeah, because it's also fair, right? It's something that,
Right.
that you don't
Yeah.
have to do for the game, but
Doesn't
you
affect
want to do
gameplay
it
at
for
all.
the fun.
yeah,
Right,
it doesn't
exactly.
affect
That'll
gameplay.
be
Yeah,
great. That'll be a great way to monetize things.
And people will throw
just-
people will throw money at that.
yeah.
just to circle back on something for who was it? I think it was was it Rum? The CCP, as far as CCP games goes, all you really need to know about it is picture a 1970s game show featuring Elise Randolph
It
in
was
an
Guts,
orange body
right?
condom.
Yeah, it had a lot of those Japanese game show aspects.
If you've never seen Guts or Legends of the Mayan Temple or something like that, go watch those and then you'll understand. You'll be filled in.
Well, I think it won when it had, was it Kakua all looped up trying to climb that stair thing?
Oh yeah.
That's just a great fucking sentence.
I thought it won when they started throwing pies at Elise. I mean, that's just right there.
That was amazing.
Let me put it this way. I didn't get a chance to watch any FanFest crap because I was busy. And then all I saw, I came home to GIFs of Fozzie and whatnot on stage just like announcing, and then nonsense happening in the background with like crazy bullshit. And I was like, what has happened to FanFest? I had no idea what was going on. I was so confused. I'm like, all right.
Guard
well,
was rocking that
Yeah.
neon pink suit
yeah,
with
you
the
was.
black shirt.
Rendis,
That was sharp.
what was your takeaway with Elise trying to express anger? That was like the anti-graph of Eve. It was like, Jesus Christ.
Oh my god. The
Fucking
Eve,
grass commercials.
the fucking Eve Pictionary game was just.
Can we just
That was pretty.
say
funny.
Manic Velocity's Graph Telkin Alexa commercials? I fucking set one up as my ringtone because it made me laugh too much. Graph.
But that's,
Hey Graph,
but see,
is there gonna be tie-dye on this fleet? The fuck's wrong with you? Have you ever played this fucking game? There's always 2% tie-dye.
but see,
I can't wait till
See,
that ringtone.
that's-
I'm gonna call
that's
you
the
when
stuff.
you get a little late.
It's
that's the
muted.
stuff that
Uh-oh.
CCP needs to understand about their player base.
Uh,
That's what the old CCP created,
yeah.
Which was also
And-
funny.
and they need to keep that in mind.
Yeah,
because
if you watched all those
they
back
need
in
this.
time things, right? It was all that type of comedy, all that type of humor.
Right,
all
exactly.
that. And then you have the new CCP, which has kind of lost this. And I do think that it's because of some of the people that have left. And of course, we can name drop people like Over and Soundwave and all that. All the old guard that had that sense of humor, right?
Sure, but that doesn't mean that you have to give it up. It's just the guys who are coming in need to the guys who are coming in need to understand that there's a culture to Eve, and if they want to make it successful, if they want to make their monetization successful, they have to work within that culture and not try to graft their culture onto Eve's.
I had actually
Because that's
forgotten
gonna get
about
resistance.
chess boxing.
Yeah.
That's going to get aggressively resisted, because the only thing Eve players like to do more than abuse themselves by playing Eve is get mad at people.
Mm-hmm. You want to produce a product for the market, not try to produce a market for the product.
I thought the other thing Eve players did other than play Eve was get real drunk. Because, like, Vegas has taught me one thing. Eve boys can drink.
Yeah, well,
Yeah, but have you ever noticed how often that and getting angry go hand in hand?
I didn't see a lot of anger in the Goon
I
groups I
didn't
was
see
in.
Bromander was not angrily picking anyone up and throwing them around. He was just hugging them to death,
All right, that's fair.
Okay. Good timing, Scythe. That almost ended up all over the screen. Thanks.
What? Did you just,
I
like,
was just taking a drink,
take the...
right? Yeah.
Oh, when I made the
So-
Bromander joke?
Oh, yeah, absolutely, because I remember that. He's like
Oh,
hugging
see,
everybody.
he tried to get me, and I'm like, no, we're both going to die if you try this.
He's a really
Oh,
nice
I
guy. I
love
liked him.
Bromander.
By the way, but that's the thing. I didn't see a lot of people getting angry when goons were getting together. They were getting very happy, right, and hanging out. I think the only anger was in the link when there were only 2 bartenders for 5,000 people.
That was great.
Like, seriously, I waited 15 minutes for shots.
I wish someone could have recorded that guy saying these Eve people really drink.
Oh yeah, that was a funny quote. These Eve people, they stay up late and drink a lot. I'm like, yeah, there's only 2 of you. Calling some backup, buddy.
Isn't that a licensing option there? We keep drinking so much that we actually empty out the bars. How about CCP actually get some of that fucking profit?
What CCP will do is they'll take bribes to put Eve meetup in your bar because you will have your liquor sales maxed.
I think Arinus is clearly right there, right? You have to understand how to market to your player base rather than create a player base to market.
Don't even think about it. Don't think about it as understanding your player base. Okay, understand your customer.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
If you want to make money, know who you're selling to and know what they want.
That's a great point. I know I work in sales, and we specifically tell people who work in our region, there's a certain phrase we're supposed to use when people come into our building. Don't use that. You need to say, how y'all doing? Because we're in the fucking South, and they will look at you funny and immediately not trust you if you start using a certain phrasing that our company says. It just doesn't work.
Sure.
Right.
The traditional Southern people want to hear the Southern accent, you know? Like, it's not a joke. Like, I'm just saying.
No, I'm sorry.
Right.
No, sorry.
So you have to look at it differently. If you're Sean Decker, and you're going, I need to make this a profitable game, his inclination is going to be, well, EA would make a product, market it super fucking aggressively until everybody bought it, and then pull the whales out from the people who stuck with it, right? But we're 15 years deep on EVE. We've got the market we're going to get. We're not going to be attracting people who want the WoW experience because we're not going to be attracting people who want... because nobody's coming into EVE thinking, this is a safe place for me to play and everything I do will be protected, right? That's not realistic.
Right, and let's face it, there's 15 years of, do you play... Hey, listen, have you tried EVE? Oh, I've heard about that.
Right. There's 15 years of, oh God, why?
Why do you play EVE?
Well, what I like
the best
is...
excuse I've had for not playing EVE is that they've played it once, got into solo PvP, and the adrenaline kick caused them to get kidney stones, and they just like, I can't deal with that. I'm like, that is actually a legitimate excuse.
A friend of mine who used to play EVE likes to say that I don't play EVE. EVE is a lifestyle choice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It is.
Where your kidneys are at risk.
Yeah.
And your
I have made more online friends via EVE than anything else, and EVE is as much a social experience as it is a game. But
it is.
One of the challenges that I have is I keep seeing CCP implement strategies that are used for short-term play games, right? Games that you end up playing for 3-4 months and then give up, and they have all these things that those games do that doesn't work with a long-term game, right? EVE is actively trying to figure out with what they're doing. They're trying to find more player base. They can't figure out how to get more players. If you've noticed, everything they've done in the last 2 years is related to that.
Well,
and how to market
that's because the type of game they're making, and I don't mean like, the stuff they're adding now, but like the type of game that EVE is, it appeals to a certain segment, a certain type of player, and a lot of the players, this isn't really an age thing either, just that's not where games have been, so that's not what people are looking for. Like when EVE came out, the big games in like the past 5 to 10 years before that had been games where you take your time, you're building something up, you're looking at okay, I'm going to be playing this game and I'm going to wake up the next morning going, God damn it, I stayed up way too late. God damn Napoleon, I hate the French. And
Sorry,
I'm not trying to single out I'm not trying to single out any single franchise, damn you, Sid Meier, but you know, there was a certain cultivation of this is the way gaming should be. This can be incredibly entertaining. That primed the market for EVE.
The game that I think the MMO, the in-genre example that I would compare EVE to generally is original pre-Second Era, pre-Renaissance Ultima Online, where it was persisting objects. There wasn't like an insurance thing. It was not instance dungeons. You know, you could have your dude hiding in a fucking dungeon for an hour and a half and know that somebody was going to come to you because there's no instancing and so on. And we can see a shift post Ultima Online, post Trammel, basically, where the MMO moved into smaller clusters. A lot of this, I think, has to do with technical demands. I'm not sure. Carneros would be able to say probably better. I think a lot of it has to do with an expectation of a certain amount of polish and a certain amount of pixels and appearance that requires instancing, basically, requires limitations on what's going on in the world. But there hasn't been a game since then other than EVE. EVE is a very particular niche, and I can't think of anything really similar to it. But the thing is, there's lots of offerings for other kinds of games. And the problem that we face when we try to bring the offerings from your other MMOs into EVE to try to bring those players into EVE is we're now competing with a way, 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 way bigger market.
The point is that product line-wise, you do not actually expand your customer base by diluting or destroying your existing product.
Exactly.
You are a coffee shop and you want to expand into another group. You don't make coffee taste more like tea, right? You add that to your fucking product line. And this was what CCP has been trying to do, except they feel like they've been falling and failing at it. And the whole Dust thing with the integration, they just make the wrong choices when they are trying to expand their product line.
So the question for the panel here, right, is really, should CCP be chasing all of these different things, or should they really be
but they should
focusing?
Do it very cleverly.
Well, let me finish.
Let him finish the question.
Yeah. Or should they be making EVE the best giant sandbox that they can make it? Should they be investing in the technology and the underlying characteristics so that you can have more than 6,000 people in a system and, maybe have a 10,000 person battle that doesn't require tie-dye, right? Should they be investing in that way, or should they really try to be doing other things? It's a tough question.
They can't afford to do everything.
Mm-hmm.
They can't just they can't keep investing if it's not bringing enough money to pay for what it is now. They can go out and look for more investors to come in, and with the thought that if they invest in the company now, we could do these structural changes, and then the game will make more money, and then we can pay them back. But that's a big risk. It's a gamble.
But the things that they've done seems to have been semi-successful. It feels to me as if they were trying to do that 20% Google model where the employees can have fun with it and then finish it, but then they don't pick it up and actually make it its own product, right? And that's the problem. If you don't actually then finish and take it to market, you're actually not going to have success, even if you're throwing tons of money at it.
I still think the biggest issue with this game is essentially the same problem I see with a lot of other just tabletop games or something heavy cost wise, which is the cost for entry is too high. I run a pretty good sized tabletop playing group, and people are like, oh, I don't want to try out this game system because I can't afford to drop $100 to buy all the books to learn it or whatever. Mm-hmm. And CCP is trying to lower that barrier, but I mean, even with the corp we were playing, our minimum skill point requirement is X, and that's at least a year of commitment to the game before you're ever even essentially up and running. And getting to that skill point barrier is pretty hard, actually, because if you don't have skills, you can't do anything. And when you see all these people, oh, this is the cool thing, this is the cool thing, this is the cool thing, and it takes you 3 years just to even touch it. You have a bad new player experience, and the new player experience is what gets you money.
What you're talking about there, I have to trigger Arendis with the whole thing of when you buy a company like White Wolf, right, and you don't start publishing EVE books.
Yeah.
What are you?
Dumb.
I have no idea. You buy an RPG company.
A great RPG company.
You buy easily one of the top 2 RPG studios of all time. And I'm gonna say it's one of the top 2 because fuck D&D. FASA produced some amazing goddamn games.
Yeah.
But when you purchase Lock, Stock, and Barrel, the studio that does dystopian fucking horror and existential bullshit so well that even the D&D shit that's good for that crap comes out from them through Sword and Sorcery, and you don't immediately put out a fucking EVE RPG.
I just need more World of Darkness.
Can you imagine how many books you and I would have been buying from CCP if they had actually made that? I would have had so many books.
If they had gone ahead and done an EVE RPG,
they could call it World of Darkness, right?
Get out. No. Don't you dare shame World of Darkness. I will stab you through this internet. Like, I will fight you. Like,
Vampire 5.
Vampire 5.
It's coming.
Like, let's put it this way. There's a website called DriveThruRPG. We dropped $400 on every single book for the World of Darkness, so you can play the Prometheans, vampires, and demons. Because we want to play the bad guys in our group. We all just collected money.
Do you know what right now my biggest frustration with DriveThruRPG is?
Their books are not normally put together well, depending on how many pages.
No,
we have that problem.
And this is a good problem to have with a place like DriveThruRPG.
You don't have enough money.
Nope, it's not that one. My biggest problem right now with White Wolf through DriveThruRPG is, god damn it, expand the fuck out of what I can put up on Storyteller's Vault to not just be vampire.
Oh yeah, you're right. Vampires. Yeah.
Not that we're bitter or anything.
Arendis, I need to pick your brain. It sounds like you have a little more experience with this system than I do. I've only played the humans in this. I got to ask questions because I'm playing our Frankenstein, and you might know the system better than I do to min-max my nonsense.
For NWAD? Promethean?
Yeah, Promethean.
I haven't actually dealt with Prometheans in NWAD.
How about Mage? Have you looked at that?
The NWAD stuff I've been doing has been Mage. Yeah, that's a hell of a lot of fun.
I wanted to do Mage, but one of our other players like, can I do Mage? I'm like, that's fine.
So,
oh my God,
let me ask you guys.
Kind of a tangent on a tangent.
Magic key?
Other than EVE, which almost seems like an accident, what has CCP done that's been successful?
That depends on what you call success.
Define successful.
I can't name another game.
Something that they haven't bought and sold off immediately because they did nothing with.
Well,
or
other than EVE, there is nothing they've done that's been successful except for Danger Game, which financed EVE, but and was like 20 years ago now. But like, I would say that Valkyrie was successful.
Yeah,
Valkyrie was Dust, right? It was just, it had issues with the exclusivity.
Dust was a big issue. Dust was successful, but their primary fans couldn't touch it. Like, the people who played EVE probably didn't have it because we all have PC. Why the fuck would you buy a $500 piece of shit console?
No, that sounds
when I can get a better graphics card.
Dust was. I mean, it had some problems at launch, but there were a lot of people, right? But there were a lot of people who stuck with it, and by the time they had to spin it down, and they spun it down because it was on a console that was already dying when they released it. It should never have been on the PS3.
So in my mind, guys, that's not a success.
The thing,
Yeah,
the
but
thing
that's
is,
just
Just because it
It
worked and
product
it
made
was
its money,
nice, right?
No, the product was successful. The release was unsuccessful. There's a very different, like if
Yeah, you're
if
gonna have to
they
explain
had
that one to me.
the
product-
reason for the
product was
release being
successful.
unsuccessful.
It built up a fan base. They were loyal customers, and they would have stuck with it if CCP had let them.
Yeah.
That's a successful product. It's not successful support, launch, or marketing.
Real talk, I don't want to be I hate being the bad guy, but we're not in a utopia. So the realities of the world that we're in, a product in a video game product can have a very loyal fan base that is, and it can be a very, very good game that everybody is crying when it's shut down. But if it doesn't deliver a profit to the shareholders,
But that's
if you
just
want
it.
successful at the end of the day.
Could have. The reason it didn't deliver a profit is it wasn't allowed to deliver a profit. It was
Right.
released exclusively on PS3, and it was
Mhm.
never going to be anywhere else. If they had released it for 6 months exclusive on PS3 and then done a PC port and a PS4 port, okay,
Right.
people
Yeah,
would
but
have been willing
don't
to
know, like,
continue paying for it. That's not the product's failure. That's
Sure.
the port's failure.
But when
But
I
it
look at
is-
something that's a success, I look at all of that combined, right? That was
Right,
a
that's it.
business failure.
That
was
wasn't
business-
a
business
success,
failure.
right?
Right, but you were asking about successful products.
Well, I
But
should have
there's-
rephrased.
But there's a difference.
Yeah.
There's a difference
We're
in
arguing
what's a successful
semantics.
product
Mhm.
versus what CCP has managed well.
Well, let's put it this way.
Like I have no idea what the numbers on Gunjack are, for example.
What has been a business success was my intended question, right?
Danger
From-
Game and Eve,
from-
that's it.
Yeah, Danger Game and Eve.
No, Gunjack is in there too. It made profit, and if
Did
you
it?
consider
Okay.
Valkyrie's
I feel
sell
that-
off, it's also made profit.
I
feel
Making
that
a profit's
Gunjack
not
was
enough.
more of a
It's
profit.
not sufficient to make a profit. It has to make enough profit to justify the expenditures and so on. The opportunity costs of development. It has to. The shareholders who invested have to feel satisfied that they
Well,
couldn't have
it's-
spent that money better.
Paramedic, you're completely correct on this because it didn't allow them to do anything else afterwards. They,
Right,
they didn't
right.
make enough to continue innovating or continue new IPs or continue the Eve IP.
That was kind of this. Arendis and I had a brief exchange chatting before, and I'd said that the VR investigations were a failure, and they weren't a failure in the sense that they created bad products or that they were necessarily time wasted in terms of development. They were a failure in that the people who invested
Right.
in developing those did not feel
They failed-
satisfied
they
that their money
failed-
was well spent.
Well,
They
I mean,
failed on the
I-
investor level.
Right? Yeah.
And the thing, the big thing, and I said this as we were discussing it earlier, but I actually cut myself off to say that I'd save it for the air. So here we are.
Right. So here we are. That's
The big thing to remember is that nobody who invested in VR this time around should have been surprised. Nobody
Right.
should have gone in thinking this is a long-term investment. No, this is an investment in, hey, let's push this a little bit further so that maybe next time it can actually hit Betamax levels of penetration.
well, I mean,
Like, I
early-
think VR is
early
hitting
on-
pretty good penetration. There's theme parks, specifically Busch Gardens in Virginia,
Sure.
has a
but
ride that has 2,000 of these
Forget it.
headsets set up in a
Forget
box.
it. No,
essentially.
no. See, that's
Yeah.
just it.
Like
that's just
that's
it.
penetration.
Okay, when you're talking about, let's look at your exact example here. When you're
Yeah,
talking
go
about
ahead.
Busch Gardens, okay, has VR headsets. Great, that's wonderful. I'm glad that a company that has such razor thin profit margins as, what is it, Amstel, who owns
Yeah, well,
Budweiser, who owns Busch Gardens.
No, Busch Gardens is its own independent company now. Amstel only bought the breweries, so Busch Gardens is its own
Still.
independent, which is even worse. Yeah.
Right. So they bought themselves back from Bush, apparently,
Yeah.
to get there. And yeah, so a company that
They
has
dived
such
in.
razor thin profit margins can afford 2,000 units in each of its parks. Okay, great. That's not market penetration. 14,000 of these things spread around the country is not market penetration. When you tell me there are 150 million of these things out there, that's market penetration. That's what you need.
Yeah.
I clearly don't know enough
Yeah.
about that to be able to
No,
say
yeah,
that.
you're not right.
But
But
you say penetration?
wait,
I'm just checking.
wait,
Okay.
yeah. Say it one more time, just to make sure we can
And
hammer it.
and I would say actually
Penetration.
also
So we-
Hilmar was aware
I'm
of this.
not- I'm
Hilmar
not-
was talking about developing. This is new technology. We're doing cutting
Right.
edge
Yeah.
technology, pushing stuff. And I think that you're right. There shouldn't necessarily have been an expectation. But the other part is you have to stop your exploration at some point, and they did, and that's fine. I don't
Sure.
think anything was mismanaged about the VR
No,
thing. To be clear, I don't think any of that was
I think
mishandled. I think it
Valkyrie was
well done.
handled fairly well.
Yeah.
I just
Right.
don't think that I think that you can't really label Valkyrie as a failure unless you had unreasonable expectations about what it should have
Okay.
done.
Well,
Right.
the thing
As an
is-
exploration of the market,
Caleb,
it was a
you-
success. It was apparently fun to play too, which is
Well,
That's a plus.
I don't know whether you could claim it as an absolute success, but like in terms of VR market, like if we're going to put success, like successful products against each other, I would say in the VR market that in actual fact Gunjack was more of a success than Valkyrie, considering the fact that it was so much of a success that they made a sequel to Gunjack.
I have a real
but they
quick
didn't make a
question.
second sequel to
How,
Valkyrie.
how many people on this actual
Yeah.
show have either played Gunjack, Dust, or both? Have you actually put your hands on those games and
I
played
played
them
Dust.
for a decent amount of time? I'd say at
I
least
played Dust.
5 hours.
I played
Yeah.
Dust, but I haven't played Gunjack mainly because I don't have VR. So
So it's still a situation where we can talk about it all day, but we have 7 people on here who hyper support this company, and we've only touched one of their other products at all, maybe.
well, that's mainly because I mean, in terms of the VR kind of area, like you need to jump over that paywall of being able to actually have
That's right.
VR like tech.
I don't have a VR and I don't have a PS3, so I'm out on both of those products.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
which is
I think
which
I
is
would like
why
to
I
comment that
really
I have had my credit card ready pretty much every single time, waiting for that whole thing of release for PC, and every
Which-
single
yeah,
time
exactly.
they fail. So they just don't have the ability to get the market to me because I want the products, but I don't want them under the circumstances that they
no,
present.
it's actually kind of funny. It's
So-
really fun.
Let me see if I get this. If I get the crux of your point here, Caleb. You've got customers who want to spend money on their shit. They just don't understand how to sell to their customers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, that hasn't been a recurring theme all show. No, absolutely not.
Well,
We're gonna
it
name
kind
this
of
the
reminds
recurring
like,
theme show.
It's like
it
I
reminds
feel
me of something that happened like actually yesterday, like last night, which I got really fucking angry about, and that was I learned from some of my American friends that The Expanse is
Yeah.
showing season 3,
Yeah.
and
yeah.
not just on like sci-fi, but actually
Fucking
you
buy
can
that
get
bitch
it
on
on
Amazon.
Amazon. You can buy it on Amazon.
Damn
It's
right.
like-
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Fuck yeah, I'll go. I'll because I've got Amazon Prime. I'll go. I will throw money at Amazon.
Here's my
and
$25.
Watch it.
Yeah.
But guess what? It's only on US Amazon, and I can't buy it on Amazon.com because my credit card is not based in the US.
McLeod,
So I
McLeod, would you
literally
like
would
to
McLeod.
borrow
money-
my streaming Amazon account to watch
Hey, we
Expanse?
can't
No,
say,
no,
you
no,
can't
no,
say
no,
that
no,
on
no,
your
just
Twitch.
kidding.
It's Amazon for crying out loud.
Look, nobody.
I have a
nobody.
family account though. I'm
Don't
allowed
share
to.
shit on an Amazon product. We're on Twitch.
Good God.
Nobody is advocating. Nobody's
That
advocating
pushed it.
illegally sharing Amazon services.
You
Just
do
like
realize they
nobody-
have a family account that allows you to do that, right?
Just like
But it's
just
just
like
like-
nobody is saying if you give somebody else the 25, they'll go and download it and email you the stuff. Nobody's saying,
No one's doing any of this.
No one's
saying that.
and no one's
Yeah,
suggesting it.
banned.
No one's suggesting that people should say that.
But I find it funny because we say that like CCP is bad at marketing, but here's Amazon who are absolute fucking experts at it, and I want to throw money at Amazon to watch fucking season 3 of The Expanse,
Well,
and I
it's-
physically can.
It's not Amazon's fault though. It's actually
Right.
your broadcasting company's fault. That's who's blocking that. It's
The
not
thing
an Amazon
is-
issue.
This is how
And
it
this
ties
brings up
into the old history of piracy, right? When Netflix and HBO and Amazon came around, offered the right product at the right price point, they fucking soared, right? They have exploded the market. And pretty much, as far as I know and keep my eyes on, the piracy market is actually tanking because of it, right? You have finally got the right product in the hands of the users, and they will pay for it. And it's exactly the same with CCP. Just make sure that you focus on where are your customers. Don't go and ask the wrong type of people to come up with a marketing strategy. Asking EA to market EVE is retarded.
And this is why Amazon is projected in the next few years to be the first $1 trillion company, and CCP is not.
Sure, that's just the only reason. Like,
that's the only
reason.
CCP doesn't provide TV shows, in a sense.
Right.
Hey, I want to take
the thing is,
before you do that, let me take a quick break because we had two people with follows, and I wanted to acknowledge them. Right. So JDJS, because you had 8 gazillion characters, I'm not going to say any more of your name than that, and Xandra Michelle for follows. So thank you very much for those follows. And
we're very appreciative of Twitch and Amazon, by the way.
Yes,
we love their
stuff. I use my Prime subscription to subscribe to our own show.
We are also not suggesting that CCP should buy Amazon.
No.
God. What if Amazon bought CCP, though?
You know,
to be honest,
one thing guarantees Alibaba takes over the world is that CCP buys Amazon. So
the thing that actually, the funny thing that your anecdote about the Amazon UK points out to me, it highlights for me, is that we're the customers, we're the market, and the market is really, really bad at understanding the market. And so it's very easy for us to say, well, they just need to market to the people who are their customers and they'll be able to do it. But the practical reality is I doubt they went to Dust going PS3 exclusive. That's the only way this is going to work. That's what the market shows us is best. There were other factors in play for that, for sure. There's definitely some because
they got a really good deal from Sony on that.
Right, I'm sure, and I'm sure that deal includes, and it's an exclusive, and we want it, and that's the bottom line. And at the end of the day, there's a little bit of that money talks kind of situation here, and we're the market, and we're saying they need to be making it towards us. But if their at the end of the day, if their metrics and their research and the realities of the company aren't allowing for it, they're not allowing for it. Just like you're not allowed to download something in the UK because there's other realities in play. That it's not a marketing failure. It's
the market doesn't. And as you said, the market doesn't always understand the market.
The market never understands. The market's terrible to understand.
There are if you go on the CCP forums, all right, there are so many people bitching about burner missions, and every time CCP says, listen, we're going to look at PvE and maybe find new ways to bring PvE, and people are bitching about it, and CCP turns around and goes, but this is what you told us you wanted.
Right.
And
you want, go ahead.
I mean, how do you? They can't win on that one. I'm not saying I am not by any means saying understanding what your customers want is easy.
Yeah, if you want an example of the market not understanding the market, if you want an example of the market not understanding the market, immersion in your Star Citizen and Elite Dangerous people. They want maximum immersion. They want to be filling out fucking paperwork when they sell something. They want to be physically moving cargo out of their ships. That's actually not immersive. That's actually head bob.
Also, if you're a novelty producer, it's very difficult to depend on metrics because you don't have them yet.
Well, yeah, that's true. If you're a novelty producer, it's a different thing, but you can still do market research and see. But like, for example, not knowing the market, head bob. People think that head bob indicates something is a good. It's very immersive. It's realistic. Well, no, because when you walk around, your fucking brain filters out your head bobbing. It's actually jarring and unimmersive to have your head bobbing around. Similarly, immersion in a game means you have to be engrossed in it. And also, it's not engrossing to be filling out a fucking form. I can do that in real life and make actual money.
I don't know if like people have actually watched people and things move around, okay? But
Right.
unless you're actually intentionally, bopping around and moving your head, right? Your head stays fairly steady.
Your head's very good. You'd
That's
have
on
a
purpose so
concussion.
you
If you
don't
walked
lose
around like a Star Citizen person, you'd have a fucking concussion all the time.
Right.
Oh, it's so bad. You're right. Like,
I mean,
oh,
this
my
is-
head
this
hit
is
this helmet
not-
against this wall. I'm dead.
Right. This is not.
Knocked out in
This is
space.
not. This is not something that should be news. I mean, every animal on Earth does this. If you really want a ridiculous example of this, look at birds. Birds have the most ungainly freaking body carriage ever. Like they're walking along, they go up hills. If you watch like a goose or anything with a long neck, the head stays exactly level. It's like, okay, and the body is moving around, and
How did
the
its
head
neck
is
make
just
that shape?
But I
steady.
didn't. This wasn't about head bobbing. What I was saying though, basically, is
But-
that people say they want something like immersion, but they don't know what that means, right? I want.
Right? They don't know what's
realistic.
immersive.
You don't want that. You really don't. Nobody wants a forms simulator.
Right?
Nobody wants.
Nobody wants
Hey,
the tedium.
hold on. Papers,
Get a
Please
job.
sold a shit ton of copies. It is a literal paperwork
I don't know.
simulator.
I
Okay,
never
there are
thought people
times.
would want a Euro Truck Simulator, but suddenly
There-
it seems
there
to
are-
be
There are
like-
legitimate times when you want things to simulate the paperwork. Like, for example, one of the absolute most ridiculously successful West End supplements ever for Third Ed Paranoia
Okay, sure.
was
sure, yeah.
the forms package,
Right.
because it's a game about mockery, and the form request form was so fucking beautiful.
Yes.
And Paranoia as a bureaucracy, like Paranoia is doing.
Oh,
Paranoia is going. Let's play up to bureaucracy because
Right,
it's
exactly.
hilarious, right? That's a very different thing from I'd like to sell some cargo, please, but I guess I
Right.
need import
Let
papers
me-
I can fill out.
Let
before
me
I
get
can
let me
offload
get
my
this
station.
let me get this stamped in triplicate.
Right. Yeah. Let me like people are talking in Elite Dangerous. They're talking about the missions. There's some background simulator controversy, and they're talking about, well, you have to turn in missions 10 times to have the right effect. And people are like, that's great, it's really immersive. And it's like, no, fucker, you shouldn't want to have to like click the same place 10 times. We're trying to get rid of that shit in
You know
Eve. We're
something?
trying to get rid of a 300 clicks for
This is
TI.
as far as immersion goes, and you're totally right about, people say they want immersion, but they don't know what that means. As far as immersion goes, it's really simple. Immersion is when you forget that you're looking for immersion.
Right.
correct. Yeah.
That's it.
I thought it's also immersion is when it's 2 a.m. and your wife or significant other is yelling at you because you need to turn the damn game off. And you
Right.
forgot what time
forgot
it
that
was.
you were married.
No, it's
You
one of
were
those.
married
It's one of
to
it's
this person
it's
in
it's the
CK2.
standard. It's the standard gamer excuses. New game came out. Well, I'll just play another hour.
Right.
6
Right.
a.m. rolls around. Fuck.
Right.
I have to
It's,
go to
it's
work.
exactly
That's
what we were
immersion.
talking about earlier with BattleTech. It's the all right, I'll just do one mission
Oh,
and
I
have a
love
fucking
BattleTech.
3 a.m.
Do y'all play the tabletop BattleTech?
So-
I used to. My local group has
we-
been so
we have-
scattered to the winds. So
we fought a full star versus star, and I thought I was gonna kill myself after.
Dude,
It took a month.
when a friend of mine had his 19th birthday, and I turned 47 this year, so it was a while ago.
Nice.
A friend of mine had his 19th birthday. We did battalion versus battalion combat.
No.
We spread.
No.
We had like
How many
6
mechs
people.
was on film?
We had that's 72 mechs.
God damn it.
We had 6 people on the side, and
Okay.
everybody brought all their maps, and we basically
Just
spread
stuck
the
them
maps
together.
out all over the floor of his living room
Nice.
and took over the house for a weekend.
That's
Wait till
pretty
you guys
awesome,
turn
actually.
50.
We've done
crazy
we've done
party.
a 24-hour D&D game before, but that was for a child's play. I will never GM that shit again. Oh, I was gonna
So-
die after like hour 7.
So Cheetah in chat said something about, you're forfeiting your gaming time when you're married. I think that's what he was getting at there, right? But, there's a window in the marriage where that matters, okay? Eventually, she's so tired of your shit, it's like, go visit your friends and fucking game. Okay?
Is that how?
And
that's how RJ got to
especially-
go to Vegas.
And especially when you're retired, right? Because you've been out of the house and she's had the house forever, right? Now you're around and you're annoying her, right? She's like, just go with your fucking friends and go play golf or play the video game or something. I've never experienced that.
I'm pretty sure that's exactly how our courtmate RJ got to go to Eve Vegas.
It is exactly
that.
His wife said, "Get the fuck out! I'm tired of your shit."
That's why I only ever dated gamers.
I could never find one to date that I liked. My wife hates video games. Hates them. Nothing to do with them.
I've only ever dated girls who will actually just sit there and watch. They don't want to play the crazy nonsense.
My first mage storyteller was a really cute redhead, and we enjoyed that. We enjoyed more than that campaign for a while.
You had me at redhead.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just saying.
If I know what I mean.
Diablo Chaga, my wife just retired. She bought me a new computer, so I'd leave her ass alone. I think it means her ass literally, but I'm not sure. Not necessarily just
Probably.
pestering.
So much open to interpretation.
So great.
Alrighty, folks. We've had a long show here today. I think it's about time we wrapped up. I do want to tell.
I'm so glad I actually got here in time to get on this nonsense.
J Champs 2011 and Soothing Cube. I think that's what it was. Was that the last one? Yeah, Soothing Cube 3. Thank you very much for the follows. Thank you everybody out there in chat for being so participatory. It was great to have you guys chat and read it while we were talking and responding. Thank you to Kerniros and Para and Arendis for joining us today. I'm going to go right around for last thoughts for the day. I'm going to start with Arendis. So you're on the spot. What's your last thoughts?
Last thoughts for the day.
And you can't say 3, 2, 1 Kenshin. Okay, that's banned.
Shit,
You already did.
shit! I gotta come with your spot.
Everybody's getting all up in arms about
Can we all just
the
do it together?
RNG stuff. But here's the basic guideline you have to remember: if it's all too cheap and too easy to get, then it'll be everywhere and nobody will care. Okay? And if it's expensive and you can make ridiculous amounts of money with it, Theta will abuse the system until it's too cheap and everywhere and nobody cares.
We got a cheer, yay!
Yeah, another thing. All right, Para, you're up.
Damon Dixon.
I am just asking questions. I just want to know. We're talking about using the Microsoft Arsenal to DDoS things, and then the next couple of days things are getting DDoSed, and I just want to know who's asking these questions. This is crazy stuff. Also, I don't think that the random number generator stuff at this stage is going to become the new Freeport Fortizar and or recruitment scamming and or nullification that's killing cancer, that's killing Eve. But it's it's going to be interesting to see where this goes. It could go really well. It could go really badly. Let's find out.
Alrighty, Mr. Kerniros, are you still around?
Yeah. What I would say is if you're concerned about monetization in your favorite games and you're seeing the company attempt to address the subject creatively and you think you have a better idea, you are warmly encouraged to post your ideas. Post them in a way that doesn't assume too much context, like the person hasn't read everything above it. Write it in a way that someone could copy it, paste it into an email internally in their corporation, send it to the boss, and the boss will get your idea just from that post. Think about it that way.
Point.
Be supportive, because we all want CCP to survive and flourish. We don't necessarily want it to turn into the next Amazon monolith, almost $1 trillion corporation. That would be nice, but it's not our goal. Our goal is just for them to make enough money to keep going and keep giving us this thing that we need. But maybe a little bit more. But we're going to all have to help, because as a group, the Eve platform is a great brain trust. Thank you.
Alrighty. Scythe, you were late, but still, I'll give you some time here.
Well, you told me I couldn't say 3, 2, 1 Kenshin, so I got nothing.
Okay, I'm glad
Yep.
you didn't say
I
it.
got some
Thanks. So,
Fuck you, Eric.
McLeod.
I'd like to take a shout out and thanks to my
Kenshin?
my no to my internet my internet Chrome. I think I'm using Chrome for
Your browser?
remembering. For my browser for remembering the bookmark to Blade Randall hits back kind of SoundCloud.
Did you post
allowing
that?
me to post that on that Reddit thread because that was fucking amazing.
Would you like to post that in there so that everybody could see it rather than going to the Reddit tab?
Please.
Oh, do you want me to? I'll link it in chat.
Oh my God.
Guys, when they
Do
go
it.
straight to that SoundCloud.
I started kickboxing lessons right after I read that because I want to be that fucking good. So,
You'd be that cool.
Because I remember, I specifically remembered that, and I was like, "Fuck, that's Blade Randall." Oh, that would be hilarious to bring basically dredge back up from the depths.
it was beautiful. It brought a tear to my eye, McLeod. It did.
I'm so glad that it actually sort of made its way into a meme as well, into that amazing GIF.
I just remember a bunch of our corp mates all started listening to it at the same time, and you could just hear the cackling and someone's just quoting it and giggling over the mic.
It brought us much joy. Caleb, you're up, brother.
I'd just like to close this with a dear CCP. My credit card is ready. Just give me something to spend it on.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm gonna end by saying, hey, there's a reason I buy subscriptions to EVE, and I've never really not subscribed to EVE, and I don't play free because I like to support what I get because it's really a good game. I just wish they'd make it better and bigger and be a giant corporation, a giant fucking game.
Urandus chat.
Okay. Urandus, I mean, it's not like Urandus can't freaking come into the general
Urandus
chat
can
or
literally
anything.
just log
You know,
into this
Jesus.
stupid thing and just start quoting it if he wanted to. But he'd just
Alrighty.
rather type it.
Last things, thank you to Damien for the 100 shares. I think it was Damien that
Cheers.
or 100 cheers that sent that through there, and Luke Cute for the follow. Thank you, everyone. I think this is one of the most follows we've got probably in a show in a long time. So I do appreciate that. We will be back next week, although I won't be here. I think Perry, you'll be hosting. So thank you very much for volunteering to do that.
Put that out there like that.
More people will tune back in if I'm not here. See, they like you guys. They don't like me. I'm just gonna be drinking beer, smoking cigars, hitting some golf balls, and losing them.
Nice.
So that's what I'll be doing. But I will be back after that. Thank you, everyone, and have a great weekend. And hopefully everybody can log into EVE the rest of today because,
Say it all together.
Yeah,
Just asking questions, guys.
just asking
Guys,
questions.
we're count it down together.
We're
All right?
asking questions.
No.
I'm just asking
No,
questions.
Don't.
Just count it down together.
Go
All
on.
right. 3, 2, 1. Kiss it.